on the West Coast. Good morning in the Central. Good afternoon on the East Coast. I am Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest at the Friends of ADOS TV channel, where you get all of your ADOS hot topics and where I make the case for reparations some more. Absolutely, family. Go ahead and get your watch party started and file on in while you listen to the sounds of my incredibly talented brother, Robert Sine, from Dayton, Ohio, funk music capital of the world. You guys know where all the fly bands originated from, right? You guys know, I think I've shared with you, family, that I am the daughter of an original Ohio player, percussionist, Robert Kawumba Jones. And so talent just runs in my family's DNA, right? It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. My brother is so gifted. Check him out on YouTube, Robert Sane, Sanae. I'm always trying to give us props on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, because if I don't, who will? If we don't promote each other and promote the excellence that is inherent in each other, who's going to do that for us, family, right? I would venture to say that very few people will. So it's on us to celebrate and lift each other up and to be extremely proud of ADOS and our contribution to the world. Remember, family, we are the strongest. We survived. Our ancestors survived the heinous travails over here across the Atlantic Ocean. We are the survivors. We are the descendants of that strength. Be proud of that, family. File on in. Start your watch parties. Today we've got an incredible topic. We're going to make the case for the Friends of ADOS SuperPAC some more with our illustrious guest, Marlon Aldridge, ADOS Dayton. And you guys can see all of the nonsense swirling about in the Democratic Party right now, right? What's up, Shay Coulter? Do sanctuary states help or hurt ADOS? They absolutely hurt ADOS, and I'll get to it after I intro the show. Thank you, Shay, for joining the line. Please let me know where you herald from. Where are you slinging bricks? I need to know where you're representing from so I can give your state a shout out and give you a shout out on the chat, on the introduction of the show. And we'll get to that question momentarily. But you guys see the dreadful hand that the Democratic Party is trying to give to ADOS to choose from for a president. It is absolutely unconscionable and deplorable. Okay? How in the world is it ever okay for Bloomberg to buy the election? How is it okay that you give us Biden, the author of the 94 crime bill, and you give us Bernie Sanders, who agreed to the crime bill? He signed on for that with Clinton, who effectuated the 94 crime bill that was originated through Biden. Then you want to give us $60.88 billion worth Bloomberg, who is responsible for stopping and frisking over 5 million Black men and Latina men. My guest is coming on the line. So you want to give us these as options, right? And then you want to tell us we've got choices. You want to give us Amy Klobuchar, who won her Senate race from having imprisoned, maybe you should still hear your name is right there. Sorry, family. Give us a second. We trying to get it together over here so it don't look right for you. Thank you for your patience. Follow me and start your watch parties. Then you want to give us Amy Klobuchar, who's responsible for prosecuting a 16-year-old boy, tried him as an adult for a murder he did not commit. Right, family? These are the people. These are the choices. And we're supposed to just show up and vote. You're trying to make a distinction between Trump. I don't know how a racist, because he's polite, gets a pass for all of the F stuff they've done to the ADOS. But the belligerent racist named Trump, who's done nothing to us in the form as compared to Biden, as compared to Amy, as compared to Bloomberg. How in the world do they expect us to show up and vote for this and want to tell us that it is better than Trump? Can someone please help me understand that? Marlon and I disagree, so he's going to share his views on what he believes should be the strategy. My view is that we should show up and vote Democratic down ballot to help the 41% of ADOS who benefit from government assistance. That is what Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore have endorsed as a strategy. But none of it works, family, unless we move as a block. We've got all of these Black Congress people, mayors, sitting up here endorsing Bloomberg. Bobby Rush, of all people, was on CNN this morning. Black Panther Congressman Bobby Rush thinks it is okay for Bloomberg to just apologize and ask for forgiveness without redress. $60.88 million Jewish Bloomberg is not in support of our reparations. Bernie Sanders is not in support of our reparations. But you can annihilate and decimate ADOS. But you don't believe in reparations and a Black agenda? You want forgiveness without redress. Are you kidding me? Do you think we are Botham John's brother? Is that what you think? That we're just going to forgive and circulate hugs up in this piece? Is that what we are continuously expected to do? You want Trump and unseating Trump to be my priority over the ADOS? That's what you're expecting of us Democrats? Well, let me help you with something. The ADOS movement shut Kamala Harris down. The ADOS movement shut Cory Booker down. I'm coming for you, Amy. I'm coming for you, Biden. I'm coming for you, Bloomberg. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And the only presidential candidate that has agreed we are due reparations is Tom Steyer. That's who's getting my vote this primary. He's not giving us an agenda because he knows it's not his place to give us an agenda. It is our place to give him the agenda, to give him the numbers. He's waiting on us. He's waiting on us. So that is what I'm doing. And today, my illustrious guest, Marlon Aldridge from ADOS Dayton, is going to help me make the case for a Friends of ADOS SuperPAC some more. I did a special edition a week or so ago, and I told you he's the brains behind the SuperPAC, professor in physics, academician, and I needed him on this show to help my family understand what we're doing. Since some of the people in the movement, I won't mention names, have talked against a SuperPAC. They have no understanding. We don't get this done, family, until we get our ADOS officials who are speaking full-chested about our repair and our Black agenda in the Congress. We want 25% in the Senate, 25% in the House. Now, how do you expect that to be achieved if we don't have a war chest, family? Okay, everybody buys their politicians in their politics. We are no exception. And we need the war chest to unseat people like Bobby Rush. I said it. To unseat people like Sheila Jackson Lee, who wants to take our reparations and dwindle it down from trillions that we are owed. Trillions to $100 billion to be shared with Black immigrants who got here after 1965 Immigration Act. Make it make sense. We've been here since before the country was formed, and you want to toy with our repair and share it with your people because you're Jamaican, working with Cobra, NARC. I see you, Julia Malvo, working with them to divide out, to dwindle, reduce the number all the way down to nothing when all of the wealth you see in this country is because our ancestors bled and their bones are in this soil. Read your history and become as passionate, if not more than me. Our children will have no wealth, family, if we don't pull together and move as a block and make this happen. It is on us, and the ancestors are with us. We cannot be afraid. This is not the time to be scared, to invoke a strategy. We continue to do the same things, expecting different results. It's going to be to the annihilation and the extinction of our race. Just ask the Indians. So we have to grow a backbone, family, and come up with a strategy and move as a block. And with that said, that's why I have my guest on today. I want him to make it plain and share with you guys what this SuperPAC is purposed for, how it's comprised, the illustrious board that we have put together of all the heads of states, not all of them. I think we've got about 10 heads of states that we're about to induct as the foundational board members of the Friends of ADOS SuperPAC. You guys know who they are, but I'm going to wait before I announce them because they've not even gotten the email yet. I'm still working on the agenda for us to have our very first Zoom meeting. Okay, family? But they are powerful and doing amazing work throughout the country. And that's who's going to be deciding on how these funds are expended on the federal, state, and local levels. We're going after the federal because we need that Congress to be replaced like yesterday. And with that said, let me welcome, I know I'm a chatty Cathy. Y'all know I was born to talk. This is Marlon Aldridge, family, the brainchild behind the Friends of ADOS SuperPAC. We went to the same high school, family, here in Dayton, Ohio. And he came out, he's older than me. I like saying that now that I'm of a particular age. I like saying people are older than me. But anyway, he's very energetic and energized behind this movement. He's had a passion for ADOS probably as long as I have. And he is working feverishly behind the scenes, building the website, which is just about complete. You can still go on the site to make donations, friendsofados.com. He put the bylaws together. Let him tell you how he got involved with the movement and about the Friends of ADOS Super PAC. Thank you, Marlon, for being on the Friends of ADOS TV.
You are welcome, and good afternoon to your audience. Like Angela said, I'm Marlon Aldridge, and I'm going to give you some information about the Friends of ADOS PAC. But at first, I want to tell you why this opportunity, how this opportunity presented itself, and what we did to take advantage of it. There's also some assumptions as well. The Super PAC will not work if the assumptions fail to be true. So the opportunity was, of course, the ADOS movement. And what I saw happening across the country were informal groups that were engaged in political activities. And being a person, as an administrator, a business person, a nonprofit leader, I knew that we had to have some formal infrastructure in place. And I'm really talking about legal entities when I say that. A Super PAC is a legal entity. So that is the type of infrastructure that I'm talking about. Legal infrastructure, unlike informal infrastructures, are responsible and accountable before the law. Informal infrastructure, such as what I was saying across the country, is not necessarily responsible and accountable before the law. So we wanted to put a formal infrastructure in place to take advantage of, or really to galvanize, the informal infrastructures that were being established all across the country for the purpose of political activities. So here's the assumption. The assumption is that these informal infrastructures, these chapters, for lack of a better word, that are, as far as I'm told, in about 30 states, if these informal chapters would be willing to come together as a legal entity in some type of sort, and we'll talk about that a little later, and establish for the purpose of being a membership organization engaged in political activities. And if that membership would be willing to take a portion of its membership dues and provide it to a state chapter and then a national chapter, then those assumptions would allow, at least in my mind, the Super PAC to be able to at least operate under a guaranteed amount of contributions per year, and then, of course, to exceed those contributions from non-members, corporations, trade unions, and other legal entities. So that's the assumption. If that assumption fails, then the Super PAC will just, at least in my opinion, I'm not saying it won't be effective, but it'll be less effective if the assumption that these informal chapters across the country are not willing to form into local chapters and then state federation chapters, which fall up under Friends of ADOS PAC, which is the national federation. So you're going to hear me use the term federation, which is really just organizations that are part of an entity such as Friends of ADOS PAC. And and the model is based off the National Federation of Republican Women. They've been around since the 1930s. So this is a tried and tested model. They have a national federation, then they have state federations, and up under the state federations, they have local chapters. So the board of directors on the state federations are formed from the local members, and then on the National Federation, those board members are formed from the state federation board members, and then, of course, some at-large members as well. So that is a model. Like I said, it is a tried and tested model. We aren't reinventing any wheels. And if the Black community, like I said, is willing to form the local chapters and then the state federation chapters as membership organizations, then I think that this organization and the political work that we're going to do is going to be very effective. So that's pretty much the model and the assumption on which we operate. In terms of what a super PAC does, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. But first, I want to get into what our mission is, what our objectives are, and then we will proceed from there. Friends of ADOS PAC is a nonprofit. We are licensed to do business in the state of Ohio as a nonprofit organization. And then we are also licensed and comply with the regulations under the Federal Elections Committee. We are an independent expenditure committee. That's really what a super PAC is. It is an independent expenditure committee. So what that allows us to do is to collect contributions from individuals, from corporations, from trade unions, from other political action committees. It basically allows us to collect money or contributions from anyone within the country. We cannot collect donations, of course, from foreign entities, whether they be individuals, corporations, or government. We cannot collect contributions from them. And there's, of course, a few more regulations that in that regard where we cannot, or we have to be careful when we are soliciting and receiving donations. So let's contrast an independent expenditure committee, also with a super PAC, also called a super PAC, from the various other types of political organizations. You have at the federal level, you have what are called segregated accounts. These are non-affiliated. You have segregated political action committees. And really what these are, your corporations, your trade unions, your can form a segregated fund, which allows them to solicit and receive donations from members associated with the corporations and or trade unions or trade associations or member organizations. Then you have the non-connected PACs, and these are various entities that are not affiliated with a political candidate who is running for office or an incumbent who is running for re-election. They can collect money from basically the same places that we can, but there are limitations on what they can do. And then, of course, the third type is the Independent Expenditure Committee, which I've already referred to. You can go to the Federal Elections Committee website to get more information on the various types of political action committees. There are also political action committees that could be formed at the state level as well, and so they would fall up under state guidelines. The benefit that we have of being in compliance with the Federal Elections Committee is that we're also able to solicit and collect contributions for federal candidates, state candidates, and local candidates. So we're the upper echelon in terms of what we can do politically. What we cannot do is make donations directly to political candidates who are running for office or incumbents who are running for re-election. We cannot even coordinate with those committees. So, and there's no limitation on the amounts of money that we can receive from the entities that I mentioned earlier. In terms of what our mission is, I'm going to read it off to you. Our mission is to engage our constituents at the highest levels in power politics at federal, state, and local levels. More specifically, we support or attack political candidates, elected officials, and ballot issues which support or deny political, economic, and social justice to our constituents who are American descendants of slavery, or ADOS. And we defend against their incessant political persecution anywhere within our national borders. To shorten that up, basically we support candidates who support us, and we attack candidates who do not support us. That's the short mission. If you want something to cling, that's what you need to have cling.
And how do we do that? Through which mediums?
We can do that through the mediums of television, radio, any medium that is
mailers,
anything that's economical, that's within our budget and allows us to get the greatest reach and the greatest bang for our buck. But that's going to be determined by our board of directors. In terms of what our objectives are to reduce wealth, income, and educational gaps between ADOS and the majority population. To do so, we bring front and center to elected officials and candidates the bona fide justice claim of reparations for force-free labor, subjugation to Black codes, Jim Crow, passive nullification during the civil rights era, and political persecution during the current era. We need to keep that in context, and this is why we need a SuperPAC, the highest level of SuperPAC, to allow us to engage in what I see as warfare. Politics is about power, and in that, politicians, political parties, and the electorate is vying for power, i.e., who controls the reins of government. And we need to make sure that we, as part of the electorate, have the ability to fend off those who would persecute us. It's very important for us to understand that politics, regardless of what you're going to find on the internet in terms of a formal definition, is that politics is about power. Okay, very important for us to understand that. To do so, we bring front and center to elected officials and candidates. Well, I already read that, didn't I? The second objective is to eliminate political persecution of ADOS. And to do so, we hold elected officials and candidates accountable for acts of passive nullification. What is that? Claiming full compliance with equal opportunity laws while subverting programs to deny political, economic, and educational benefits to ADOS. And we hold them accountable for state-sanctioned political persecution of ADOS by police, including unwarranted extrajudicial killings. So we're familiar with the Black Lives Matter movement. What we are doing here with the ADOS movement will allow us to hold elected officials, public agency heads directly accountable by engaging in the highest form of politics. And it's going to take money it's going to take money that's going to allow us to do that. I can envision being engaged not only in electioneering or supporting candidates who support us, attacking candidates who do not support us, but also engaging in lobbying work, going to the elected officials that are there and putting forth policy initiatives that will benefit ADOS. So that's very important for us to engage in those types of activities. And then, of course, the third one is to support and defend democracy of ADOS. And to do so, we organize at the grassroots level by knocking on doors, making phone calls, and getting our constituents out to vote for candidates and elected officials who support their full access to the ballot and who will defend against voter suppression and unethical redistricting. So those are our objectives, but just keep in mind that the overarching goal is for us to support candidates who support our agenda, our policy initiatives, and to attack those who do not. This is war. That's how we're looking at this. And again, if the assumption is that you, the audience, and your friends and your family and those that support what you do are willing to form local chapters, are willing to form state federation chapters, and to contribute annually with dues, that will give us a base amount of money in which to sustain our operations. And then we can go over and above that for those who do not want to be involved with the local chapters. There are still opportunities for you to donate via contributions. We need to understand that these contributions for political activities are not tax deductible, but they will allow us to build a war chest to support those who support us and to attack those who do not support us. Okay, very important for us to understand that. I'll let you take it back over now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I wanted to go back to Avery Fennell's comment. Avery stated that it is imperative we get the founders of the hashtag ADOS movement, Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, to stop disparaging the celebrities that I intend to go after for big donor dollars, who would be willing to support the ADOS movement, but all of the disparaging and grievous things that are being said about them may hurt our efforts to get our war chest in the millions above the membership, right? Avery, you're absolutely right. But one of the things we cannot control, is how Yvette and Antonio go about structuring their shows. They've kind of built their brand on going after celebrities who mask the failure of ADOS in our communities. But the board is going to be deciding on whether or not to even change the name, because having the ADOS there and having them disparage the celebrities and the like may actually hurt the bigger donor dollars that we can raise. So that's a board decision, however. In speaking with a couple of them, one wants to change it, another one doesn't, but that's theirs to do. Marlon and I are just there to manage the SuperPAC and raise the bigger dollars above the states and the local chapters. So we don't have a decision in that. But thank you for that comment. You're absolutely right. One of two things has to happen. They either have to stop disparaging the celebrities, or we may have to change the name. Okay? Hit 'em high, hit 'em. Visual Joe Perry, welcome to the live. Trey, welcome to the live. Visual Joe Perry says, hit 'em high, hit 'em low, all sides, business, commerce, policies, policing, education, politics, unions, manufacturing, distribution, health, research, agriculture, land, laws, etc. By 2045, we will be the majority worldwide. We need to be their mindset to assume power. We take over, buy them out, invest them out, land them out, elect them out, politicking them out, gain control of our military and police career them out. You're absolutely right, Visual Joe Perry. Basically, It is on us. We are the change we seek. We are the leaders that we've been waiting on, right? It is ours to do. Avery says, open to the name change. Let me know how I can help. Absolutely. You guys can help a great deal. Many of you already are contributing to the Friends of ADOS Super PAC. I set up recurring payments. You can visit friendsofados.com to do that. But we will need all hands on deck on the state level, on the local level, right? We need you guys to show up when we're on the steps in Washington. We need you to show up and boycott Comcast when we ask of you. We need for you to continue to educate the masses, because right now our biggest fight is ADOS. Our biggest fight is ADOS. You've got so many ADOS who are comfortable that they don't understand that 90% of us are only sharing 700 billion while white folks share 100 trillion. And it's that top 10% tier of Blacks, predominantly Black immigrants, when you consider that they compose 10% of the Black population in this country, that are benefiting from the $2.3 trillion of the measly $3 trillion that is ADOS to share in terms of household dollars. So we need to continue to get the message out and to spread good juju about the ADOS movement and what we've come to do. Not all of us are on Skid Row, and many of us can afford $30 a year towards the Super PAC as members. Okay, many of us can afford that. So there are going to be different ways to pay for those who can't or struggle with that, and that's a board decision. But I see being able to set up as recurring monthly payments to pay the dues as an option for those who may struggle. Lobbying will be huge. Can you talk about lobbying and how it will really help, expound on the Super PAC?
Well, lobbying has to do with approaching elected officials and doing advocacy work to promote certain policies. So there's a lot being done in that regard. And I think that we as ADOS need to be more politically active in lobbying, not only in political activities such as voting for candidates, but we also need to be working with the elected officials that are there, both locally at the state level and at the federal level, trying to push and advocate for policies that are advantageous for ADOS. This, like was said before, we are part of the electorate. We have been here before the foundations of the country. And so we are, by law, legitimate citizens. So part of the franchise is to promote and advocate for policies as to help those who are part of the franchise. And to the extent that we do not do that, you might as well say it's to the extent that we are disenfranchised. So we're familiar with the 1866 Civil Rights Act. That was the first government policy that gave us citizenship and gave us the rights to have the same types of opportunities that whites have. So from a law standpoint, I think we have all of the laws on our side. We just need to be familiar with them and use our citizenship rights to remind elected officials of those laws, and then to push for legislation which is favorable to us, and then, of course, to push hard against legislation that is unfavorable to us. But I'd like to add is that there's power in a federation. And what we need to understand is that when we are speaking to elected officials And I'm really speaking to the audience. You're the ones that are going to be doing the work. It is important for you to understand the power that you would have if, say, Friends of ADOS PAC had 2 million members. This would put us on par with some of the larger federations. I'm thinking in particular the American Federation of Teachers, I think the names of it. They have about 1.7 million members. So, and that's one of the largest trade associations in the country. So it is very important for us as ADOS to understand that when we speak to elected officials, the first thing that they're going to want to know is how many people are in your organization or how many people that are backing you. So that's really another assumption that I think needs to be made now that I think about it, is that not only are we expecting to take advantage of the synergy of local and state chapters, but we also hope to take advantage of a large membership base that would allow us to go and speak in front of elected officials and have power behind us. There's power and numbers, and that is one of the main reasons that federations exist. One of the main reasons that trade associations exist. One of the main reasons that labor unions exist is because they realize that there are powers and numbers. So numbers is power. So we need to understand that.
Absolutely. Can you share with the audience what those numbers could potentially grow to annually if we were to get, when we do grow this movement to 2 million or greater?
Well, one of the things that at least from my standpoint, I like working with models that are already tried and tested. And so I bring forth that number of 2 million members. I think is a reasonable number if we can win over the hearts and minds of the people. I heard you mentioning something earlier about some of the side skirmishes that were taking place. I don't really think that we need to be involved with that. From what I can tell, the potential board members that we have interviewed thus far, they're very sharp people. In fact, many of the people that I have seen associated with the ADOS movement appear to me to be very sharp people, and we need to galvanize. We have very educated people. We need to galvanize those people formally, which we have done. We're going to push forward here, and I think it is very reasonable that we can achieve 2 million members if we stay focused. And that's really what we have to do to be less concerned with what's going on in terms of with celebrities, for that matter, to be less concerned what's going on in the mind of ADOS individuals, to be less concerned what's going on with the media, and to be more concerned with what we are doing internally to grow the membership, and then, of course, to grow that war chest. If we are able to do that, we can bring the heel individuals, we can bring the heel to media, and we definitely, more importantly than anything else, we can bring to heel politicians and candidates who seek to represent us, or candidates who seek to oppose any type of advancement for anything other than the majority community. So I think that's what we should be focused on. And if we can do that, this is going to be an historic moment, probably just as historic as the civil rights movement, and potentially even more historic, and probably more effective than the civil rights movement, because this is the part of the franchise. We have to understand that democracy is ruled by the common man. We have to understand that there's an agenda in place right now that the wealthy, which is the minority, okay? There are various forms of minorities, And wealthy people, I want you to imagine a wealthy person living in a democratic society. What would be the advantage for a wealthy person being basically run by the majority, the common man? So there is an agenda in place to reduce democracy, okay? And those that, at least in my opinion, that are in concert with this wealthy agenda to reduce democracy are the Republican Party. Okay, that is the conservative-minded party. Has anyone ever considered what are they trying to conserve? And I'm going to leave that right there.
Well, thank you for that. I did the numbers, family, and once we grow our membership to 2 million at $30 a year, you're talking $60 million per year in our war chest. Now imagine, family, what we could do for ADOS with that kind of war chest and compare it to what we cannot do currently. Do you think that these presidential candidates would be running around here disparaging our reparations and our ADOS agenda if we had that kind of war chest? Let us sink in. I'm going to go to the comments. We're at 46 minutes, and I don't want to go over. I thank you for staying with this, family. If you have questions or comments, please put it in the chat. I will read what BeLive allows me to see before we close the show. Shay Coulter asked if sanctuary states help or hurt ADOS. They absolutely hurt ADOS. I live in California. That is a sanctuary state. Right now, we've gone from 15% in population to 6% because we are a sanctuary city. Okay? 90% of the homeless population on Skid Row is ADOS. Okay? Me, with a degree in finance and a ton of experience, once earning over $100K a year, can hardly find work when I fall on hard times because now they have a new form of discrimination called you must speak Spanish in the country our ancestors built with their lives in order just to be interviewed. And when I show up, I don't have the complexion for the protection. And you see I'm a rebel. I'm going to rock my naturals. I'm going to rock my braids. That is another form of discrimination because I own myself. I believe in myself. I'm confident. When that comes to the door and you have no adversaries at that table and you have no social capital, you can hang it up. That's all the way throughout the country that's happening to educated, experienced ADOS.
Let me say something on that too.
Go ahead. Marlon wants to jump in.
I wanted to speak on this ideal of immigrants, which is really what, when we speak about sanctuary cities, that's really what we're talking about. I don't take a perspective on it. In other words, I'm not going to say that I'm for or against. I just want to offer a perspective on that. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, politics as power. What we have to understand is that the Democratic Party for the last 27 years has been the weaker of the two-party system. The Republican Party has been able to dominate federal and for the most part, state government for the last 27 years. And I want to give you an example. Yes, minorities make up a large percentage or a growing percentage of the population. But we look in terms of people that vote, 79% of the people that vote in this country are white people. Okay. And the majority of those white people, regardless of what you're going to hear about independence, the majority of those people will vote for the Republican candidate. It only takes about 27% of that white electorate to install a Democratic president. Okay, so if it only requires 27% of them to cast a vote for a Democratic president, then that means that minorities would make up the other 24%. It only takes a majority, for the most part, to install a Democratic president. What people probably do not know is that over the last 27 years, the Republicans have dominated the federal government 60% of the time. And I don't think people understand that. If we want to propel our agendas forward, we need white folks to vote in line with us, okay, in order to control the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the executive branch. There's only been 4 times that I can think of over the last 27 years that Democrats have been able to have been in charge of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Most of the time, the Republicans, I think the Republicans have done that about 6 times, but in terms of control of the House and the Senate, over the last 27 years, that's been about 60% of the time. So if you really want to understand why immigration is important for the Democrats, you have to understand that the numbers are not in their favor. It is not a majority of white folks that are Democratic, okay? And don't be fooled by this independent label. Go out and research for yourself and find out who's controlled those 3 branches of government over the last 27 years and prove me either wrong or right. But I'm pretty sure that you'll find out that Republicans have dominated the federal government, and 22 state legislatures, I think they're about, have a what's called a trifecta. They are control of the governorship, the Senate, and the basically the state legislatures. They're in control of both chambers, and they are control of the governorship. And this is what they have been able to do, the Republicans have been able to do over the last 27 years. They have basically dominated, and this is my point, they have basically dominated the Democratic Party. So this is why white Democrats, white elected officials in particular, make those trips to the Black churches, make those trips to Hispanic communities, so forth and so on, because they are the weaker of the 2 parties. So what we would need to ask ourselves then, okay, what bedfellows do we have to get in bed with in order for us to control the House, the Senate, and the executive branches of government? It's very important that if we're going to push anything forward, I think, and we didn't say this, is that there are currently 55 Black legislators who may not promote our agenda. What we are attempting to do, what this federation is attempting to do, and what you are going to help us to do, should the assumptions prove true, is that we are going to put candidates in office that are for reparations and that are for our policy initiatives. And I actually think that we can control about 25% of the House of Representatives. And all that would take for us is to install about 110 ADOS representatives, or just representatives who support reparations and who support our agenda. 110, that would put us somewhere about 25% of the House of Representatives. And at least in my opinion, that is a very powerful position to be in. And then, of course, we'd have to deal with the Senate, be a little bit harder there to do that. But
Not if we have candidates like Tamara Johnson Shealy that we could support and flood the country. Well, at least the state of Georgia, if we could flood it with ads from the dollars from the SuperPAC, we could get a Tamara Johnson Shealy in that Senate. Don't you think?
It's a possibility, but they also have war chests as well. We aren't the only one with war chests, and I would imagine that their war chest would be a little bit more substantial than our war chest would be. But there are some, in terms of the state level, at the Senate, at least at the Senate level, there are just some places that we as Black people, there's not a lot of us in, say, Wyoming. So there's some places that we just aren't going to have a strong foothold in because we don't reside there in large numbers.
Well, the states that we do have large numbers, I strongly believe that we need to get those people into the Senate. Okay. And I believe that we can achieve that. We must achieve it, right? Because the current CBC, the current Congress people, they're for DACA and they're not really fighting for what we need. But everybody wants us to just show up to vote. I also feel like the Democratic Party is becoming very much like the Republican Party. Okay, Biden was Strom Thurmond's boy. Okay, Bloomberg was a Republican. Now he's able to buy the election. Okay, Warren, Republican. Now she's running Democrat. So for me, the lines are getting very muddled when it comes to conservative, spilling over into the Democratic Party. That's problematic for me to cast my vote for these kinds of people that have been fully invested in keeping us oppressed, fully invested. They're just nicer about it. That's how I feel. That's what I'm observing. Why in the world did we build the country and we're on the bottom? You want to speak to that?
Well, we are the minority. When I say the minority, I'm talking about numerically. There are alliances that we have to make in order to gain the majority. There's no other way around that. And again, like I said, the Democratic Party, we must understand, is the weaker of the two parties. So when they are not in control of government, it is going to be very hard for us to push our policy initiatives forward. They are the only party. What we need to understand is that the Republican Party is really a cultural party. Okay, now when I say culture, I'm talking about white culture. The Republican Party wants to conserve their culture and their way of life only. Okay, and that party's only going to get stronger as the demographics changes. And to the extent that we are not in control of the reins of government, they can put policies in place, which is what Trump is doing right now, that will keep the numbers in their favor. So it's going to be harder for us to regain the reins of power if the Republicans are in charge and putting policies in place. And they'll tell you in a minute that yes, they support voter suppression, and they support policies which help them to maintain the majority in both the House, the Senate, and then, of course, the presidency is normally up for grabs. But I'd say just they've installed, the Republicans over the last 27 years have held the office of the presidency. We're maybe one more president. They've held it one more term than what we have held it in terms of the Democrats. But in the House and the Senate, make no mistake about it, the Republicans have dominated that party. And unless the Democrats can pull a rabbit out of the hat in some type of way, the Republicans are going to continue to dominate that party. And we're going to see more and more of white America become more and more conservative, regardless of that independent label. And one of the ways to judge a person is not about what they say, but who they put in office. If they're putting the Republican in office and they carry an independent label, if they're putting a Republican in office for the majority of the time, you might as well say that they are Republican. And so that's how we need to look at the numbers. We need to look at the numbers and make determinations and decisions based on the evidence as opposed to the rhetoric. And I think that is going to serve us well if we look at the actual evidence and pay less attention to the rhetoric.
Well, if the president doesn't matter as much as Congress does, why are you opposed to us showing up and voting down ballot, Democratic down ballot? How does having Trump as a president in a Democratic Congress hurt us? Won't it just gridlock what they can do and tie the hands on both the fronts for the next 4 years? And I'm not understanding why that is not a strategy you support.
Well, having gridlock is not a strategy that helps Black people. Let's say if we all agree that with the Democrats in control of the House and the Senate, where all of the laws are made and all of the budgets and appropriations are passed, then it's important for us to also have a Democratic president in charge, because the president has veto powers. Let's say, for example, given the polarized situation that we're in now, that majority is a very tenuous position. What do I mean by that? Currently, I think the Republicans, there are about 55 Republicans as opposed to 45 Democrats, and the independents who caucus with them. Maybe one or two independents, like Bernie Sanders, I think, is an independent but he caucuses with the Democrats. So that's not a large majority. So in order to overcome a veto, we're going to have 2/3. That's 67 people that are going to have to be in favor of a piece of legislation should the president should the president veto legislation favored by, say, a Democratic House and a Senate. And in order to overcome that, they would need to have 67 votes. And I can't see over the last 27 years where either party has had 67% of the majority in the House or the Senate.
But we had a Black president who had the Congress for 2 years. And I know it was only 2 of 8 years, but we're not better off since Obama. So I don't really understand how any of it helps us. I believe that if we have a Trump presidency and a Democratic Congress, that we could send a message to the Democrats that come 2024, they need to be on board with our reparations and a Black agenda, because we can shut it down. How do we, if all we have is our vote? Right now, we don't have the SuperPAC producing the millions that we anticipate. But if all we have is our vote, how do we leverage to ever get on top when all we'll ever do is show up and vote for a Republican in Democratic clothing? What makes you think Bloomberg or Biden or Warren are going to listen to us and put policies in place to close the egregious racial wealth gap?
Well, both the Black electorate and the white Democratic electorate are in doubtful situations. What we don't realize about the Democratic Party, I'm talking about the white control, for the most part, is controlled by whites. What we don't realize is that they have to serve 2 masters. What do I mean by that? The independent voters who would vote for them, they can't move too far in appeasement to say the black vote, because that will tend to make some of those independent voters now want to coalesce with the Republican candidates. So they have a balancing act that they have to play. They can't appeal too much to us, because what that does is it turns off potential independent voters who would vote for the Democratic candidate. Okay, so there's a balancing act that the Republican Party has to play. Now, of course, some of them you can imagine that some of them don't want to appeal to black candidates other than to get their votes. They're not going to be offering policy initiatives which promote black people and black people only. That's not going to be something that a percentage of them are going to want to do. So,
well, stop right there. So they want us to continue to show up and be the mules of the Democratic Party. They don't want to offer us anything because it's not sexy for white folks, and yet they need our vote to win. Make it make sense.
Well, I mean, that's just the way it plays, and it's
so we can't get anybody on the record to champion our causes, but we're just supposed to vote. Really?
We got to look at the bigger picture, though, and we have to look at this over the longer term. Is that they, by virtue of not controlling the House, the Senate, and the presidency, for that matter, right?
You said that they had one more term above us for president.
Well, the president doesn't control policy.
Right.
He has a
That's
bully
what I'm saying.
pulpit.
What difference does it make?
Yeah, he has a bully pulpit. Like, see, right now, Trump is not a policy person. Trump is the front man for the Republican Party. Okay, whatever they put forth, he's just rubber stamping it. He's not a policy person. So, that's what we need to consider with the presidency. The presidency has the bully pulpit. And I have to give this to Trump. He's using it effectively. He is basically bullying the Republicans into promoting policies while actually promoting himself. He's promoting himself. The policies that he's pushing forward are policies that the conservatives or the Republicans have favored for the last 20 or so years. So Trump is allowing them, using the bully pulpit quite effectively, to be able to push policies forward that the wealthy and their acolytes, the Republicans, have favored for the last 20 years.
I hear what you're saying, but all I know is that we've been voting for the Democrats for about 60 years, and we're on the bottom. And all we've got is our vote. I don't get how anything changes if we don't get them on the record and hold them to some tangibles for ADOS. You can't need my vote and then not be willing to exchange for my vote. And I think we're far long overdue to make demands of them. And the reason why they think that they can continue to offer us nothing is because we keep showing up, not demanding that they go on the record for tangibles, reparations, and a Black agenda. And what they've used in the past is you never asked for anything. Lies. The same philosophy that you just shared and the same theories you just shared is what everybody has done. I remember when Obama was in office, we kept being told, just wait until after his first term. Just wait until after his second term. Once he's out of office, he's going to start, championing the cause of Blacks. And he got up there and said no to reparations and signed Blue Lives Matter. Okay, I could go on and on. Marlon and I agree to disagree on this point. I say we use our power. And if we've got to suffer, let them all suffer. Let everybody feel the oppression that we're going through. We've gotten accustomed to it. And we've got leaders now, ADOS leaders in office who are telling us to vote for the likes of Bloomberg and just vote blue no matter who. It's time for a revolution, family. In my humble opinion, I am showing up and voting Democratic down ballot. And as long as Tom Steyer is putting forth out of his mouth and speaking full-chested and working with the ADOS for an agenda and for reparations, that's who's getting my vote this primary season. Marianne Williamson is out of the race. This is our vote is our weapon right now that I believe we need to fire as a block. You heard me on Fox, so that's my belief. We're 10 minutes past. I wanted to get through here real quick and see if there were any other comments or questions. Avery says we need a super PAC. Thank you for your support. Church, I totally agree, Avery. Yolanda Niels, thank you for being on the live. A word. Sorry, these things. Political systems, I love it. Thank you, Avery. If you could inbox me, I think this is going to be, I see you, Visionary Millennials 2 at Gmail. Okay, can you send that to Angela Nirvana? If we're not friends, send me a friend request and send me your email. Political systems, love it, from Avery. Let me know how I can help. Thank you. We read that comment already of Avery's. If we're going to, here's his Avery's comment. If we're going to go the super PAC route. That's about the celebrities. Stop disparaging them. Trey Lincoln, thank you for joining the live. I appreciate you always there for your love and your support. Lobbying will be huge. We talked about that. We did visual Joe Perry's comment already. I'm trying to scroll. Which one, baby? Yeah, I read that. Avery, that's true, sis. I'm open to the name change. The board will have to decide that. Okay, I'm trying to go down. Dell Cooley says there is a difference between personal attacks and constructive. Very true. I think you're speaking to Yvette and Antonio. And I believe their attacks are, I don't believe their attacks are personal. I believe their attacks are constructive. And to Marlon's earlier point, we don't need to pay attention to that. We just need to focus on growing the movement and raising dollars for the war chest. Thank you, Avery, for typing in the friends of ADOS.com. Support family. Delku says we need all hands on deck. We can't have people who are apathetic or downright hostile to our agenda. Absolutely, Dale Cooley. Avery, I'll be dedicated, $25 a month coming out the gate. You got me fired up. Let's go. ADOS, ADOS, ADOS. That's what's up, Avery. Thank you. Okay, I appreciate your monthly contribution. Okay, Robin Felix, what's up? Hey, sis, ADOS, Nashville in the his house. Love you. Thank you for being on the live. Love you, Black. Love you, Strong family. We spent $2.3 trillion. We need to funnel that buying power. Yes, we do. Well, that's the $2.3 trillion I was referring to are the household dollars that the top 10% of Blacks in this country benefit from. We're not spending $2.3 trillion. That is a lie. We have $3 trillion amongst us. 10% share $2.3 trillion. We spent the 90% of us. We're in that 90%. Spent $700 billion out of $107 trillion. So no, they're lying. We don't have $2.3 trillion to spend. The 90% of us are ADOS sharing $700 billion. We are simply surviving out here. We're paying our mortgages and supporting and taking care of our families and helping our kids struggle through college while trying to have enough saved for retirement. We're not traveling to Africa, back to Ghana and all this kind of nonsense. Okay, we don't have that. The top 10% are. You see the celebrities running over there for this return to Ghana and all this kind of stuff and taking these tours, but they have the 2.3 trillion while trying to sell us to blow our savings and our mortgages on these kind of excursions to see where we were sold from. I don't need that story. I'm living that story, as are the rest of us. Shay Coulter says agriculture. Yes, great discussion. Thank you, Shay. Avery says, oh, sugar.
Let me say something about.
Let me finish this real quick. I'm going down. I always promise them I'll read, and I don't. But this is where we can. Don't lose your thought, please. I don't want to have you lose your thought. No double-tongued serpents. Oh, hold on. We must have a candidate that'll give us a voice within the immigration process. I agree. Okay. Go ahead and speak while I scroll.
Well, I just wanted to say to the audience, for those of you that are involved in local chapters, it'd be a good time for you to bring up the SuperPAC and the need to have these local chapters form into membership chapters organized by the states in which you reside. Of course, we will be providing technical assistance on how the local chapters and the state federation chapters can set themselves up legally so that they are authorized to conduct business within those states and also to stay in compliance with state and federal laws regarding political activities. It's very important in terms of political campaign finance laws that we be aware of what those laws are. And what we didn't mention is that there's also an opportunity for these local chapters to have membership dues structured in such a way that their membership dues are over and above what we're asking for. And of course, these amounts are going to be subject to adoption or revision by the board. There needs to be funds set aside for not only the local chapters, but the state chapters and then the national federation as well. So the local chapters should have money to fund their operations, in particular to donate to local candidates if they decide to do that. The same thing at the state level, they should have funds available to run their operations and then to donate to state candidates. And then, of course, at the national level, we will donate to federal candidates. And if the funds are available, that will also allow us to help out at the state and the local levels as well. But the priority should go to federal candidates because it is at the congressional level that if we are seeking reparations, that's where we're going to get it at. I also want to end at least my comments by saying that we are going to have to make appeals to other communities, whites in particular, in order to get the majority, okay, in the House and in the Senate. We're going to have to be very delicate in how we do this because, like I said, the Democratic Party is the weaker party, and we can hoop and we can holler all we want, but if we are not the ones in control of the House and the Senate, and ideally the presidency, then it doesn't make any difference what our goals are. We will never be able to fulfill those goals because the Democratic republic that we live in is really about majority rules. And when I say majority rules, I'm talking about numerically. The party that has the greater numbers is the party that will run the federal government. And not only do we have to worry about what happens at the federal level, but we also have to consider what happens at the state level and at the local level, because under our system of governance, they call it federalism, there is shared power. There are certain powers that are reserved for at the federal level. There are powers that are reserved at the state level, and there are powers that are reserved at the local level. Okay, this is our system of governance. It is a shared system of governance, and what is easily done at the federal level can be outdone at the state level. So we need to be cognizant of all of that and operate in such a way so that we can get all of our agenda items accomplished without alienating those who would allow us to have the majority in the places we need to have the majority. I'm really talking about Congress, since that's the level that we're operating at the federal level. But the same is true at the local level. The same is true at the state level. Now, of course, it's going to be harder at the state level because Black folks don't have the majorities that are needed. I'm talking about numerically to run state government. So even in places like Mississippi, for example, Mississippi does not elect 38. I think 38% is the Black population in Mississippi. Mississippi does not elect the president. Okay, this is to show you how the system is set up in such a way that the majority determines who is elected president, even in a place like Mississippi. And I want to say this another way so everybody understands how delicate this really is. 38% of the population in Mississippi is Black. Okay, I challenge anyone in the audience to find me a Democratic president who was elected by the state, by the majority of Mississippi, other than Jimmy Carter. Okay, Jimmy Carter was the last Democratic president elected by the state of Mississippi. So for all intents and purposes, that 38% Black population did not participate, other than nominally, in the elections for president of the United States because of the way the policy is set up. It's a winner-take-all policy. Unless whites decide to vote in line with that 38% of the Black population in Mississippi, a Democratic president will never be installed by the state of Mississippi. And like I said, with the exception of Jimmy Carter, only Republican presidents have been put in places, have been installed in places like Mississippi, because the whites there are not willing to vote in alignment with that 38% of the Black people that live there. Now, that is the largest Black population that I know of in any particular state. So if that is true for Mississippi, you can imagine how that will operate in other states as well, where the Blacks aren't significant in numbers. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Avery says 2 million members, $25 or more a month. Our voices will be heard. History will be made. ADOS, we here. 2 million on the low end. Amen. Visual Joe Perry, yes, we will. Bring to heal. Avery says it will be more than effective than the civil rights movement because of technology and the internet. Absolutely. That's how we've been able to impact this election cycle, right, family? Underground, on the social media, they're watching what we're doing and how we're moving. We're upsetting the apple cart. It's a good thing for ADOS. Avery, the sanctuary states need to pay ADOS a tax for sure. Absolutely. Right now, we in California, ADOS is working yet again, family. Remember, it is up to us to tell them what we need. We are to demand it of them. We don't want anyone telling us our dollar amount. We don't want anyone telling us our Black agenda. So right now, the state of California is working on reparations. Okay, they like to flatten reparations, give it to all groups, and basically it's a mask for what they should already be doing and how these dollars aren't trickling down, the contracts aren't trickling down to ADOS. So now we've got a coalition with Chris Lodgson out of Sacramento. There's an assembly of us that are working on what that reparations looks like, who it goes to. We're modeling ourselves after Marlon Watson and Arthur Ward out of Chicago, who took a busload of their ADOS members in Chicago up to the state to speak with their legislators about getting an ADOS distinction, okay, so that they can build a wall around everything that's due us with respect to money, contracts, business loans, and the like. Okay, so Marlon's leaving us. Thank you guys for entertaining him. I'm still going if you want to stay on the line, but not for much longer because we have a ton of things to do. But anyway, like I was saying, they're going to have that ADOS distinction, and that is something we're also looking to incorporate in the state of California. The distinction and defining what that reparations on a state level should be and unbundle it from what the state should already be doing for ADOS. So that is something that you guys will be working on statewide as well. Once we get the National Federation in place, we're going to put these models in place so that the national feeds into the state, which feeds into the local. So we'll all be moving as one block within the ADOS movement to get a lot of this work accomplished, okay? Sanctuary states, okay, we need to organize our businesses. Yes, that's from Visual Joe Perry. Dale Cooley says, what about the Reform Jews and the Baptist organization that support reparations for ADOS? Can they be activated to help support the SuperPAC? Absolutely. Yeah, we have about 3.5 million churches that are in support of reparations and a Black agenda. We will be leveraging all of those relationships to grow our war chest. These would be the ones that were probably the abolitionists back in the day. Everything gets taken into consideration and gets leveraged here. We're not going to leave any meat on the bones when it comes to our cause and our movement. We must have a candidate that will give us a voice within the immigration process. Yes, no double-tongued serpents. Right. Good afternoon, ADOS. New England and Connecticut here. Thank you, Antonia, for being on the live. Appreciate you, sis. Jamar Carlisle, good afternoon. Yes, same to you, brother. Thank you. Veronica Browning, yes, we have a few ADOS running for a local office that also need financial support. Absolutely. As Marlon mentioned, the way the SuperPAC works is to raise money for the National Federation, the state, and the local. These will be the war chests that we use to help our local, state, and national candidates to win their seats. We hear y'all. Be wise in dealing with them. Dot every I, cross every T. Understand they will never be on our side. White supremacy agendas and gaslit tactics, red lines, black codes, etc. This is from Visual Joe Perry. For appearances, they will go for a minute, for they will give 5 things and take back 15. Do not trust. Absolutely. This is why if you go to ADOS101.com, you will see that it's not just a check. We're talking about legislation that can be enforced and guaranteeing that we are a protected class. So just like the Indians, so they cannot undermine us anymore. They should have never let us find each other in social media spaces and get education, because we're doing things a lot more smarter and wiser this time around. Now that we know, excuse me, family, now that we know the things that they can do to us to undermine and give away all of what is due us. You know, we've got the civil rights that we can look at, the affirmative action, where everyone is coming and co-opted. Now white women benefit more from affirmative action than the ADOS it was intended for. Okay, so we got you, Visual Joe. Del Cooley says, we need to forget about the different parties, but which one supports an ADOS agenda? Yes, well, we have a two-party system. Sadly enough, we have to work within the confines of that. And like I said, we're still growing as a movement and working to get all ADOS collectively, well, at least a few million of us, you know, at least a third of us, and we can get a third of us on this reparations bandwagon, we can change the face of the Democratic Party. Between lobbying and SuperPAC, we will get what we are owed. This is not welfare. It's not a handout. We need more judges and lawmakers. Yes, we do, Visual Joe Perry. I'm actually thinking about going to law school. I work as a litigator in work comp law. It's the only area of law that I can practice in the state of California without being licensed. But all of what's going on has got me considering law school at this age. Oh my God. I can't even remember sometimes what I went into the next room for. And here I am trying to remember constitutional law. But it is what it is. It may take that, family, for me to get what we're owed. We'll see. I'm in prayer about that, the way I was about what God needed me to do, how God wanted to use my voice. And then the ADOS movement happened a year ago, January, when Kamala announced she was running. So I'm a pray over that piece right there. I just want to be used and be effective for my people whom I love, Black, whom I love strong. You guys know this. We need more. Okay. Veronica Browning, thank you for being on the live. Pelosi is a Republican. Okay. Obama supported many conservative viewpoints. The Democrats are definitely moving away from the left. They're so far left, they feel right. Thank you for that, Veronica. That's what I'm observing too. That's why we need the SuperPAC. We need a war chest. And have been since the mid-'80s. Gridlock is what's needed. Exactly, Angela Nirvana. I say, let them earn their keep. Let it be a war within the Congress and the president. We've been at war. They've been committing war against us. Sometimes things have to fall apart to come together, family. We know what it's like to survive on rice and beans, right? We know what it's like to be reparations for our families. We have to grow a backbone. None of this changes until we effectuate that change. Marlon and I agree to disagree on this point, but I say break the back of the establishment by any means necessary. Decimate the current system. It's not working for us. Who built, and I'm going to always remind you, we built this. We, our ancestors, built this. And read what it took for them to get to make sure we survived as a race. Read what they went through. Read about it. Join the ADOS book club. When you understand the price that was paid, you'll grow a backbone. For those of you who are still on the fence about what is owed and the cost. None of these Masonic presidents have benefited us as ADOS. You're right about that. That doesn't make sense. We have ADOS across the country. They can't compute this stuff together. Thank you, Jamar. I believe it's because they don't understand the cost. We've gotten so comfortable. We're so privileged. We've not been raped. We get to eat in fancy restaurants. We get to buy homes. Some of us, not all of us. I'm fighting for the majority of us that don't have the luxury to come online and have a voice. I'm here for the voiceless, as are you. That's why you tune in every Saturday, and I thank you for your faithfulness and commitment to the movement, the commitment to this show that's constantly dealing with topics concerning us. I am ADOS first for a change, profoundly. I don't have tears for the rest. I'm all cried out for my people. As are you. So if you have to leave, okay, I'm just going to read these comments because they're great comments and we need to finish this discussion. I'm almost done. We are living in an oligarchy government. Top white men, corporation, money talks play to this equals controls. We need our own media and big businesses. Visual Joe Perry, ADOS. You're absolutely right. We don't get that till we can buy it. There's a price tag to it. Understand that. Earring just fell. I'm talking my earrings off, y'all. Okay, what do we mean compute stuff together? I don't know what that part means. What doesn't make sense? I would have to go back, Avery, but I mentioned something about make it make sense. I don't know. It's in the earlier part of the show. He won't even commit to ADOS in his website. You're talking about Steyer. Okay, let me help you understand. Mike Michelson, thank you for being on the live. That was your comment. I hear you when it comes to Tom Steyer. What I'm suggesting is that we leverage it as a strategy. We know Tom Steyer is not going to win the same way we knew Marianne Williamson wasn't going to win. I'm talking about chess, not checkers. If we could get enough weight behind Tom Steyer, as I had asked that we do for Marianne Williamson, we can send a message to the establishment candidate that they're sure to run, even if they have to steal for it, that they put reparations and a Black agenda in their mouths, leading through into the general, or risk a show-up down ballot strategy again when it comes time to vote in November. This is strategy. I don't expect Tom to get enough white votes, especially since he announced that he supports reparations. I don't care really that it's not on his thing. I'm talking about sending a message. If there were enough ADOS that would give him that vote, it would be effective. They will know that he only got our vote because he spoke on reparations and believes in it, and they don't. If they can't deduce that, oh well, too bad, too sad. We'll have to do what we have to do come the general. What Angela was saying about Dems voting for any candidate that doesn't benefit us. Oh, thank you, Jamar. Back to Avery's question, what doesn't make sense? To continue to do the same thing while expecting different results. To continue being the mules of the Democratic Party while remaining the legs of the table that everyone else eats from. That's what doesn't make sense to me, okay? And to many of you. That's why we're showing up and voting down. Yes, ma'am, I'm on it. Okay. Veronica says, I'm voting down ballot for referendums, but not Democrat down ballot. Local and state Democrats are no friend to ADOS either. Thank you, Veronica. Let me reiterate my point and why we need a Democratic Congress. because Donald Trump is rolling back all of the government assisted programs that 41% of ADOS benefit from. You're absolutely right in everything you said, but I'm voting Democratic down ballot to protect their interests. I don't care about the president. If Trump and the Democratic Congress want to lock horns for the next 4 years, they can't hurt. They're already not helping us. So they can't do any more damage to the 41% of us who rely on government assistance while they sit up here and bury their heads and act like they don't know how we got here. They've been complicit from the time Abraham Lincoln gave us 40 acres and a mule. Johnson came back and undid that. They gave us Freedmen's Bank, stole all the money from ADOS that was in that bank, and then took the troops. The Union troops left the South. And then we had 150 years of Jim Crow as a result. They burned down our businesses. They lynched us. They shot us. This is how we got 41% of us on government assistance. This is why 90% of the homeless on Skid Row are ADOS. They've been complicit. And nothing changes when we continue to vote their asses into office. Who are the most dangerous on Capitol Hill? Visual Joe Perry. They both are the most dangerous. The Republicans are the guillotine. Just fire. And the Democrats are the gas chamber. Who are we spending $700 billion with? Let's funnel that. Visual Joe Perry, that $700 billion is for our very survival. 90% of us. There's 40 million people, 40 million blacks, 36 million, somewhere around there. 90% of us share $700 billion to live. How many of you are going on luxury vacations? How many of you have wealth to give to your children and your grandchildren? 700 billion out of 107 trillion that we built? We can't even pull that. We can do a little bit. We can aggregate our little bit of Starbucks money to build a war chest, $60 million a year or greater when we build this organization 2 million strong and greater. Just take from the 700 billion to do that. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Visual Joe. Spencer Spain, what up? Mississippi ADOS in the building. He's another sharp brother. We're going to get him ready for the Senate race. Maybe not this time around, but in 2 years, Spencer Spain's going to be a real contender in Mississippi. You watch what I tell you, okay? You can use the individuals. You cannot move their party. And when have we ever? Well, we'll have to use the individuals to change the party until ADOS are over the top. Look at how educated we are. We got social media to disrupt things the way we've been doing. The revolution is being Twitterized. So we'll do what we have to do to replace those individuals one at a time and change the face of Congress. That is what we're on, and we just have to be collective in that movement, in that effort. Adolphus Armstrong, thank you for joining live. ADOS Atlanta, I see you. Floyd Brazil, hello, wifey from Houston, Texas. All right now, what's up, Floyd? I support your movement. Thank you, Floyd. We got folks in Houston Reach out to Michael Brown, send him an instant messenger and a friend request, and help him sling for ADOS Houston. Go to their page. Bruce Jones, ADOS Pittsburgh in his house. Great work, sister. Thank you, Bruce, for always supporting, for being on the live. Love you, fam. Mwah. Floyd Brazil, make sure you guys remember all of the Black inventors that haven't got due funds from the money that is still being made from their ideas. You better know it. When I say we built this, I mean everything you see around you originated from those of us whose ancestors made it through that hellish free chattel slave labor. Hellish. Munira Bomani, right on, my sister. Thank you for being on the live. Teach, sis. Thank you, Munira. I pray I'm saying that correctly. And these are the last comments that I'm able to see. Marcia Claire, thank you for joining live. Keep fighting, sis. We're right here with you. I know you are. I know that. I feel you. I feel the ancestors. I feel everything. Exactly. Floyd, look at all the profits being made off of their inventions. Man, you have never lied. So many people owe us, family. We're starting with the government. Okay? And then we're going to go and get Europe's money. We're going to go get Africa's money, who traded us as they try to sell us these expensive ass packages to come back and look at where they sold us from. I'm not interested. Let me get off my soapbox. This concludes the show, family. Please share it. Please like it. I love you so much. I love you, Black. I love you, Strong. I thank you for your unconditional love and support of the work we're all doing. When I'm on here, I'm speaking for all of us. I'm speaking for the voiceless and just allowing God to use me. The ADOS, the ancestors are with the ADOS movement. They're running through our veins. They are the reason the movement takes cat naps. Thank you, ancestors, for all you endured. This is the least I can do to thank you, ancestors. And thank you, family, for showing up and out, for slinging bricks, for joining this movement, for using your gifts and talents. The ancestors are the reason we can. And with that said, I'm going to close with my closing prayer of protection, family, that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and his allies are, God is. You are the face of God. You are the hands and the feet of God. Be proud to be ADOS. And until next Saturday, you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your day, weekend, and work week. I love you, Black. I love you, Strong. Peace, family. Mwah.